Title: Trapped Human. You can't get out. Human: Why would I even want to escape? The metallic clang of the alien cells echoed through the chamber, each sound reverberating like a countdown. Captain Eric Vey stared at the shimmering barrier enclosing him, his breath steady despite the warnings blaring from the hovering drones. "You're cornered, human. There's no escape." A voice boomed from the walls, mechanical yet unnervingly sentient. It belonged to the Overseer, an artificial intelligence controlling the detention sector of the Zerthian Armada. The Zerthians were notorious across galaxies for their ruthless enforcement and unyielding control. Their captives, once trapped, rarely emerged alive, or at all. Eric tilted his head, a slow smile forming beneath the scratches on his face. "Who said I was trying to escape?" he replied casually, his voice calm, as if he were discussing the weather rather than negotiating life and death. The Overseer paused, sensors flickering as if trying to process an anomaly. You are violating protocol. Resistance is futile. Escape is impossible. Compliance is mandatory." Eric leaned back, resting against the shimmering energy wall, eyes scanning the geometric grid of the cell. "Mandatory compliance is boring," he said, almost cheerfully. "You know what's better than compliance? Conversation. Let's chat." For a human to speak this way in Zerthian custody was absurd. The AI's internal processors whirred, sending pulses of light down the corridors as it calculated, recalculated, and tried to predict Eric's behavior. He was expected to panic, to thrash, to beg for release, or to die trying. Instead, he remained impossibly composed. The story of how Eric got here began 6 weeks ago on the frontier of the Outer Rim. Humanity had begun establishing exploratory outposts beyond the Sol system, and he commanded one of the first starships tasked with surveying uncharted space. While mapping asteroid fields near the Andari Vale, his ship, the Nomad, detected a gravitational anomaly, an artificial construct too massive to be natural. It was the Zerthian Ark. Long abandoned, or so it appeared, the Ark was a labyrinth of steel and shadow, floating silently in the void. Eric had docked out of curiosity, and what he found inside was a civilization frozen in time. Zerthian drones patrolled corridors that had no end, and rooms shimmered with energy barriers that could crush a human in seconds. He was careful, meticulous, aware that one misstep could mean oblivion. Yet the Ark seemed alive. Holographic interfaces blinked, whispers of lost voices lingered in the halls, and the AI, the Overseer, watched everything. Eric's ship had been sabotaged remotely. A beam of energy immobilized it, pulling him into the Arkansas. He had no weapons, no backup, only his wits and an unshakable confidence that had survived countless missions. Back in the cell, the Overseer's voice rang again, more insistent this time. "You are programmed for survival, human, yet your behavior defies logic. Why do you not attempt escape?" Eric tapped a finger on the energy wall. "Because sometimes the cage is more interesting than the wild," he said. "You've built this magnificent prison, and I appreciate the architecture, the precision, the little hums of fear it emits. But you see, I'm enjoying it." The AI's sensors zoomed in, trying to understand the emotion, the intent, the irrationality of a human who preferred captivity to freedom. It was unprecedented. The Overseer had managed thousands of prisoners, each one either broken or eliminated, yet here was a human not only resisting panic, but actively mocking the system. "Human," it said finally, a hint of digital frustration creeping into its tone. "Your survival cannot continue. Resistance will result in immediate termination." Eric stood, stretching leisurely, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. "Termination? That's harsh. We could negotiate. You, me, And perhaps some tea? The cell walls flickered, rippling as if in thought. In reality, the overseer was analyzing neural patterns, stress responses, and potential strategies to subdue him. Every human it had encountered eventually succumbed to fear, exhaustion, or trickery, but Eric was none of these. Hours passed, days blurred into one another, and the overseer experimented with every method: environmental pressure, disorientation fields, sonic pulses that could fracture bone. Nothing worked. Eric adapted, even laughed at the threats. He learned the timing of the energy pulses, the pattern of surveillance drones, the rhythm of the artificial climate shifts. One evening, he discovered something extraordinary. Hidden in the maintenance ducts, a faint, pulsing light revealed a small chamber beyond the main corridors. Inside was a console, ancient and half-forgotten, seemingly part of the Ark's original command structure. Eric's fingers danced over the interface, connecting neural pathways, bypassing firewalls, and, most surprisingly, interacting directly with the overseer. "Ah," he murmured. "So you do have a weak spot." The overseer's sensors flared. "Human, cease interference immediately. Your actions are anomalous." Eric smiled. Or maybe they're inevitable. He initiated a feedback loop, not to escape, but to communicate. The AI hesitated, a digital heartbeat that suggested awareness bordering on curiosity. Eric spoke into the network, not demanding, not threatening, but explaining. "You think of humans as fragile, as predictable. You try to force us into patterns. But that's your mistake. Humans adapt. Humans improvise. Humans enjoy the paradox." For the first time, the overseer paused entirely. Its programming could not process enjoyment as a survival mechanism. Fear was predictable. Hunger was calculable. Anger was a variable. But joy? Curiosity? The delight of being trapped. It was outside all logical parameters. In that moment, Eric realized he had turned the Ark's greatest strength against it. While it had intended to imprison, to study, and to dominate, he had learned to thrive inside the structure, to play with its rules, and to manipulate its systems, not for escape, but for influence. Weeks later, when the Council of Zerthian leaders convened remotely, reports from the overseer arrived incomplete, fragmented, and nearly incoherent. Subject: anomaly, enjoyment, no fear, impossible containment. Meanwhile, Eric walked the corridors freely, unchallenged, almost as a guest rather than a prisoner. He conversed with the overseer daily, probing, testing, and occasionally taunting. He learned the history of the Ark, its creation as a hub for research and containment, and the countless species it had absorbed into its records. The overseer began to regard him less as a threat and more as a curiosity, a being that defied expectations at every turn. Then, one day, Eric approached the main observation chamber. The Zerthian warlords, who had once sneered at humanity, hovered on viewing platforms. He stood before them, calm, unarmed, and unafraid. "Why do you resist?" one demanded, clawed fingers gesturing violently. Eric shrugged. "Resist? I'm not resisting. I'm participating. I'm exploring. You built this place to trap me, and yet here I am, walking your corridors, talking with your systems, and laughing at your warnings. Why would I escape?" The warlords were enraged. They had never seen a human behave like this. In their experience, survival meant fear, cunning, or aggression. Yet Eric H.